So, Ms. Obong, you are welcome back. All right, let's proceed. So this conceptual frame shows you the integration of the various components in a typical agroforestry system. So in the middle is agroforestry. And then you have the various players, the various parties that are involved. You have soil on one side, you have the sites, you have increased production, which is your aim, and then you have the natural resource base. And the ultimate aim is that you want to be able to maximize productivity, maximize soil output. You want to be able to rejuvenate the soil, rejuvenate the site, conserve your natural resource base, and ensure that there's an acceptance amongst the players, the actors, the farmers, or communities that are involved. So the concept is that you are combining multiple production of multiple outputs while you are protecting the resource base. And emphasis, particularly in this part of the world, in agroforestry practices, should be on multi-purpose trees, particularly indigenous species, such as Avingia wombulu. I'm sure you all know Avingia or Avingia gabonensis, Ogbono. I'm sure Obong would know Ogbono very well. Zuluajano will know Ogbono very well. Mrs. Dayola will know Ogbono very well. And Mr. Akin will also know Ogbono, even though I don't know if he knows how to cook Ogbono. You have Dichrois edulis, you have citrus species, you have Agbalumo, Paracephalum albis. These are fruit crops. There are other ones that you try to promote in this part of the world. You want to be able to... Okay, Packia is another one, locust beans. So that the concept is that you want suitable low input conditions and fragile environments are going to be protected. And the sociocultural values of the people. Because, you know, for example, in local communities, women go into the forest to collect some of these non-timber forest products. They collect the fruit trees, they collect leaves, and they use them in their for domestic activities. And in a way, you are going to be stratifying the ecosystem, mimicking what you have generally in a multi-layered tropical forest environment. And this here will be what you expect to achieve in terms of spatial space and temporal distribution. So you have trees. This is probably banana or plantain. This is probably a fruit tree, maybe kola nut tree. You have shrubs, you have arable crops that are also growing on the land. So you're trying to mimic what you have in a natural forest. So what you need to avoid is frequently we misplace definitions, we misplace aims and potentials of agroforestry. We need to understand that agroforestry does not ultimately mean increased production, because there are things like component interaction. What if you mix species that are going to be competing and have negative effects on one another? So our aim is to encourage the ecological and the socioeconomic settings. But that still does not mean that you achieve success merely by starting agroforestry. There are scientific bases with which you introduce the components. Otherwise, you may not achieve success. So the concept may fail if, for example, there is wrong species combination, the management practices are not properly applied. When there is no clear understanding or motivation, the process may fail. Because there are positive or negative interactions that may occur between the various components in that system. So, to give you a summary of the interface that exists between agriculture and forestry, particularly in developing countries. This schematic diagram summarizes the whole concept. Forestry on one side, agriculture on the other side. And then you have the constraints or conditions that make agroforestry necessary. So in terms of, you have subsistence farming, you have degraded soils, you have low capital, high labor, shortage of some of the forest products we get from forest, and land tenure constraints. So agroforestry tries to address these constraints by planting trees or to reclaim degraded lands, integrating non-forest trees, maybe in home gardens, integrating woody perennials to achieve soil conservation, having firewood lots so that people can get firewood from the wood lots, boundary plantings, multi-purpose trees, creating buffer zones. So you have a buffer around water bodies, for example, so that the buffer will protect the water body from erosion. So the attributes or characteristics of agroforestry include productivity. So you want to increase output of your crops or your trees. You want to reduce the inputs, so you don't have to use fertilizer when the trees can supply nutrients. And you want to make your labor efficient. The second attribute is sustainability, where you're able to conserve your production potential, maintain your fertility goals and conservation. And the third one is adaptability. These are three prongs on which agroforestry stands, the characteristics of agroforestry: productivity, sustainability, and adaptability. The farmers have to accept it. They have to accept that it can help them increase their yield, firewood, or their timber, or fruit trees. So in the next class, we are going to be looking at the various practices that we have in an agroforestry system. You can describe the system based on either the biological, technological, or socioeconomic attributes. So when you say a system, you're talking about a type of land use specific to a locality or a broad area. You can have a livestock system, forestry system, agricultural system, and then you have an agroforestry system based on the function that system is providing for you. And the major objective is to increase the human ecological carrying capacity of rural areas with the priority of improving food production systems. So in terms of providing food for households, fodder for animals, firewood for domestic energy, and other products. And then going forward, sustained productivity such that the natural resource base, I talked about three attributes now. In terms of sustainability of soil fertility, controlling erosion, improving microclimatic conditions of your soil. Examples of different subsystems that you can have that are different from agroforestry, and you can begin to see how you can integrate trees into these various systems, and then it becomes an agroforestry system. You have subsistence farming, bring in trees into subsistence farming, it becomes an agroforestry practice. Cash crop production, so you have cocoa, you have rubber. They classify them as cash crops, but indirectly, they can also provide some function as trees. You have poultry system, an example of a system where you can integrate woody perennial with poultry is bamboo chicken systems in Asia. You have dairy, plantation, lumber production, firewood production, and the watershed management. So all of these things are things we will discuss when we begin to look at biological composition and arrangements in a system, the level of technological management, and the socio-economic features. In agroforestry, there are many subsystems based on the components that they are combining. For example, agri-silviculture, agriculture and silviculture. So agriculture and planting trees too. Silvopastoral, you have trees and then pasture, animals. You have pasture lands where there are trees growing on the pasture lands. So when we say a practice, an agroforestry practice is a specific land management operation that relates the woody component on the farm to other management units. For example, when we say shelter belt, so the tree is the shelter. It forms a belt around your farm. Alley cropping, the trees form the alley, and in between the alley, you plant your arable crops. So farmers adopting your agroforestry technology, the one you are introducing to them, it depends on, would they be able to get food out of it? Would they be able to get income? What does the future hold in terms of long-term benefits for the farmer? What about their immediate needs, like building materials to construct their houses? What about the long-term protection of their soil from erosion? These are the things the farmer will think about before he adopts a particular agroforestry technology that is introduced to him. So, in classifying the agroforestry system, ICRAF in 1987 developed some criteria for distinguishing different practices in agroforestry, whether it's a practice or a technology or a subsystem. So, for example, you look at the system composition. So, aquaforestry, aquaculture, and forestry, the two systems coming together to form an agroforestry practice. The structural arrangement, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of the vertical stratification or temporal arrangement. So you have a land and you have timber species in the uppermost canopy. You have in the middle canopy fruit trees. In the understory, you have shrubs like Vernonia and Gardenia, so bitter leaf, Moringa oleifera. And then on the floor, you have vegetables, you have maybe cassava, all in your backyard. And that's a homestead or home garden. Function, so in terms of maybe soil conservation, socioeconomic contribution, ecological, I mentioned this earlier. So, and this is a summary of the different classifications that you have and the basis for classifying whether you are using the component, using the function, using the agroecological environment, or the socioeconomic management system in a particular environment. So this is a summary. You can go through this table later just to be able to say, okay, when you say agri-silviculture, where you have crops and trees growing together. In terms of arrangement, so you have arrangement in spatial distribution, so home garden, like I just explained. Or in terms of the function, the role, the system, the components play, so productive function. They give you food, they give you fodder, they give you firewood. Or the environmental, agroecological environmental adaptability. So lowland in the humid tropics. You have systems that can be used in island sub-humid areas. You have systems that can be used in terms of the socioeconomic management level. You have low inputs, medium inputs, high inputs. All these are various approaches to classifying agroforestry system. Don't be confused. The aim here is just to show you that there are different ways that you can look at a particular system and you can say this is an agroforestry practice. Thank you. I think we can take questions now. Let's take questions. At least we still have 5 participants. 2 have dropped off. We have 5. So I'll take questions. Hello, are you there? Am I speaking to myself?
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right, so
Yes, sir.
any question? Obong, you were raising your hand earlier on. Can you ask your question? Mrs.
No, sir, I don't have any question.
So you understand the class, everything is clear.
Well done, sir. Good morning, class.
Good morning.
I want to ask something concerning, you know, there is difference between agroforestry now and agroforestry system.
Okay.
So I want to ask, when you ask that difference between agroforestry and agroforestry system, does that mean that we are concerning agroforestry is definition and some of the things about agroforestry? Then concerning the system, are we talking about based on their function, their structure, and what again?
Yeah, that's how you classify a particular system. So
Okay.
when you say agri-silviculture, it's a subsystem under agroforestry as a broad kind of broad umbrella. So, but when you say agri, means agriculture, civic,
Yes.
and silviculture. So you are combining trees and arable crops. So those are the subsystem. But within agri-silviculture, you can have different types. We'll still go into the various practices that we have, and then you will see the variations as we go on. I'll snap that diagram that I usually draw and send it to you. You can see the different systems and the different subsystems and practices that you have within each of those subsystems.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So I think we'll stop here. It's already past 9. We've gone ahead of our time. So thank you all for coming. Class rep, please take attendance of those that are here. Can you put on your cameras? Let's take a picture. Put on your camera just for a minute. I'll take a class group picture. Okay. Okay. I'm waiting for Mrs. Oluwajana and Oguntola. Mrs. Oguntola. Please put on your cameras. This is Waliat. All right. Okay, thank you, everybody. So I think we can end the class now. So wish you a wonderful day, and you can continue the discussion on the WhatsApp platform. So have a nice day.
Thank you. God bless you, sir.
All right,
God bless
bye-bye.
you, sir.